GE and CNBC TV18 present Energizing India.
Hello and welcome to our new series, Energizing India, brought to you in association with GE. I'm Shireen Band. There's been a lot of buzz about dwindling output of oil and gas in the country, which has landed the economy and the oil and gas sector in a crisis, as the country depends on imports of crude oil to meet its requirements. So on the show today, we discuss the challenges faced by the oil and gas sector, what needs to be done to overcome them, and also what we can do to narrow the demand-supply gap. To discuss all of that, I've got with me an esteemed set of panelists here with us. Banmani Agarwala, President and CEO of South Asia GE, Vipul Tulli, Director, McKinsey & Company, R.S. Sharma, former Chairman and Managing Director of ONGC, and Kirit Parikh, Chairman of the Integrated Research and Action for Development. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the show. But before we get started, let's take a quick look at the current state of affairs of the Indian oil and gas sector.
India witnessed an unforeseen economic growth post-liberalization driven by demographic changes, rapid industrialization, and a robust service-oriented business environment. This gave rise to a humongous need for energy. The primary energy mix of India is coal 53%, oil at 29%, and natural gas at 10%. Oil is the primary source of energy for transportation, without which India's progress comes to a standstill. The rising demand for energy has landed the economy and oil and gas sector particularly in crisis, as the country depends on imports of crude oil to meet more than 77% of its petroleum products requirement. In the fiscal year ending March 2013, India's net oil import was 2.6 million barrels per day at Brent crude prices averaging $110 per barrel. Over the past decade, the more than five-fold rise in India's net oil import bill to $109 billion last year enlarged its trade deficit to $196 billion, causing a current account deficit of $88 billion or 4.8% of its $1.8 trillion of GDP. During the year 2012 to 2013, the total under-recovery on petroleum products reached a level of 1,610 billion rupees. The increasing population, economic activity, and rising income levels will further push the demand for energy in India. The Integrated Energy Policy has estimated that India's primary energy supply will need to increase by 4 to 5 times and its electricity generation capacity by 6 to 7 times over its 2003-2004 levels to deliver a sustained growth rate of 9% through 2031 to 32, with primary energy supply growth of around 5.8% per year.
Well, that's the current state of affairs, and it doesn't look very good. Kirit Parikh, you're the veteran here on this panel, the veteran of many reports that have actually tried to identify the solutions to address the challenges that the oil and gas sector and the energy sector at large faces in this country. Do you feel confident that we are ever going to really move away from this subsidy sharing formula, tweaking the subsidy sharing formula to complete deregulation given the political prerogatives of the government?
You know, I'm a congenital optimist, and as the Prime Minister Nehru said many years ago, it's if in India, if you lose hope, nothing is left. So I'm hopeful, and I think some recent moves by the government, at least say gradual increase in diesel prices, etc., does indicate that really there is some hope that yes, we might get and recognize the seriousness of the problem that we are facing. We need to set prices which are competitive. We need to set prices which also encourage people to explore and produce more oil and gas in the country. We need to liberalize coal so that more coal is produced domestically, because coal imports have also become 100 million tons these days. So unless we really liberalize the whole energy sector, the hydrocarbon sector in particular, I would say even the power sector also needs lots of reforms. But let us say on the hydrocarbons, we are a much more pressing problem are there, and we must charge opportunity cost pricing to all consumers.
But, you know, how do you explain the contradictions? Because on one hand, the government, the Prime Minister on several forums talks about aligning gas prices, for instance, to the market, talks about aligning diesel prices to the market, and we have made some improvement as far as diesel deregulation is concerned. On the other hand, the Finance Ministry then supports a cap as far as gas prices are concerned for user industries. So this inherent contradiction that shows up time and time again.
I think the trouble is that the different ministers in this government certainly seems to be really looking after their own turf and own responsibilities. So
but is it really a problem only of this government?
No,
I mean, let's be honest.
No, I think in the past, or one hopes, at least in theory, there should be joint combined cabinet decision, so that not different ministers speak.
But
in
political
different
parties
voices.
change their view as per interest. Now that we've deregulated petrol, we've partially deregulated diesel, do you worry that we could perhaps go back again if there is a change in government?
I hope not, but it is certainly is a possibility, and I think that would give the worst possible signal to the world.
Yeah.
Because this would just show that the Indian policies continues to remain fickle and continues to remain uncertain.
Problem is nobody wants to buy the India story because of this challenge of fickle policy as far as the sector goes. Do you really believe that we're at a stage where the government is finally going to realize that, listen, we need to back off?
Look, you mentioned about the gas price and the issue of the cap on the gas price. The decision had been taken by the cabinet that accept Rangarajan committee recommendations. And that cabinet also has the same ministers. It has the Prime Minister. How can one minister can air a view which is contrary to the decision taken by the cabinet?
But won't you say that things have improved, as Mr. Parekh was pointing out, because decisions have been taken, whether it's as far as gas is concerned or diesel deregulation? Are investors feeling better today about investing in India?
Well, in a way, I also try to look on the positive side of the things.
But you're not a congenital optimist like Mr. Parekh is it?
Let me be little more realistic. You know, the issues like, energy independence by 2030, I don't think in foreseeable future, under present situation...
So you don't buy the DGH's vision?
Look, that I don't buy that vision at all, that we'll be able to have energy independence by 2030, unless there's some radical technological breakthrough comes, we get a solar energy or something as a savior. We need to at least ensure that our own, for the sake of energy security, our own self-dependence level goes up.
Yeah. Vipul, I want to look beyond just oil and gas, and we want to talk about actually India being energy self-sufficient, and give us a sense of what we should be looking to do at this point in time as far as the entire energy piece is concerned.
I think I do agree that there is positive movement, but I think let's try and understand, if we want to move forward, exactly how serious the problem is.
Yeah.
If I look at energy security today, India, on an overall energy basis, we import about 30% of our energy today.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2030, that number looks like 1.5 billion tons of oil equivalent, with an energy import overall of about 50%. If you look at what needs to be done in that context, given the seriousness of the issue, I think we need to move on 4 fronts besides whatever we do in terms of our policy decision making. One, I think we have to recognize that coal is here to stay.
Yeah.
And unless we get to a billion, 1.2 tons of coal production domestically in a sustainable, environmentally sound, sensible way, we aren't going to get there. Number 2, we have to make conventional and unconventional oil and gas in the country, exploration and development sustainable. And finally, I think renewables is a terrific story. India is today leading the world in terms of being able to get to some of the lowest cost renewable based power in the world.
Mr. Agrawal, and the energy mix that Vipul was just talking about there, we don't really see enough effort to move towards that. We don't see enough thought being given to solving the other pieces of that puzzle, so to speak. If I were to ask you for policy imperatives to be able to address renewable, non-renewable, hydrocarbon, power, coal, what do you think is the single biggest challenge facing us on the policy front today?
Just to take a couple of points that Vipul made and also Mr. Sharma, if you look at the distortion that subsidies is today causing into the marketplace. So, for example, the distortion in diesel pricing, which is creating an unusually large amount of diesel consumption, particularly for the purpose of power generation, which, by the way, even
for the first time in a decade, we've actually seen a drop
in absolute consumption of diesel. However, there's way too much of diesel being consumed for power generation, which, by the way, even at a subsidized price, is at least about 40 to 50% more expensive than gas.
That's right.
So that is something which we should be able to fix without any major change in pricing, etc. But just to make sure that for peaking power, etc., we are able to use gas. The other is on renewables, and I think as a country we've done phenomenally well to have the right policies, to give the manufacturing side a support, and as a consequence, I think we have a wind regime which is very good. We've got a solar mission that's playing out rather well, and I think we just need to push this further. Just one more point I'll make in this is that I think there are certain areas in technology where perhaps we as a country could take a lead. Energy storage is one of them. And I think it's extremely crucial for us because while we look at baseload and try and address that through coal, etc., we will need some solutions through energy storage to address our peaking requirements. And I think we can do well as a country to make sure that we develop technology, etc., in that area.
On that note, it's time for us to take a break. When we return, we continue to talk about the future for India's oil and gas sector on Energizing India, brought to you in association with GE.
GE and CNBC TV 18 present Energizing India.
Welcome back. You're watching our special conversation, Energizing India, brought to you in association with GE. Mr. Parekh, the point that Vipul was actually making and Mr. Agarwal were also making about getting the end user to understand that there is a cost. Let's look at what's happened with the power sector in this country. SEBs, of course, now called discoms or whatever the case may be. The kind of problems that this sector has actually been plagued with. We're now seeing a process of restructuring again. But do you really believe that till politicians say that, yes, there is a cost to power, there is a cost that you will have to pay, we're going to end up in the same situation again?
I completely agree with you that people have to recognize that if you want power, you have to pay for it. If you want water, clean water delivered to your home, there is a cost involved in it. And unless consumers pay for it, it isn't going to work. Nobody can have a mechanism or system by which...
Or subsidize, continue to subsidize.
It cannot really work easily. And I believe that most people would not mind it. It's only that the first change making that is being opposed. Just look at petrol prices. From 50 rupees to 75 rupees, it has gone up and down, and nobody really, you don't hear any squeak.
And there are no dharnas and there are no morchas anymore.
So it is that I'm not sure that the consumers are not willing to pay for it. They can do it. I think if we are concerned about the very poor, have a conditional cash or even a cash transfer, direct cash transfer scheme, and forget about distorting any of the prices.
R.S. Sharma, I want you to address business of, blocks which have been awarded, but nothing much has happened with that. We've seen the experience as far as the past NELP rounds are concerned. We're now hoping to perhaps launch a new NELP round and be able to attract much more investment. But do you really feel that we are likely to see improvement in terms of E&P discoveries, in terms of recovery rates, in terms of productivity enhancement? What's your own gut telling you at this point in time?
See, absolutely. First of all, talking positivities, I talk of the potential. There's a very distinct potential for, increasing the production, for increasing the exploration into the country, and for IOR, EOR, very distinct possibility. But we feel there has to be a strong political will. I will use the word strong political will because we have seen time and again recommendations given by the, economists of the eminence of Dr. Kirit Parekh. They somewhere,
V.K. Chaturvedi, Vijay Kelkar, another Vijay Kelkar report expected, a committee that you're a member of as well.
Well, thing is, when we work in these committees, I tell you there's so much passion because we feel concerned for the economy.
Because you're not running for office. You're not going to be contesting an election.
Look, this working in these committees, there's no compensation. Only thing is the passion. And there also we keep discussing potential is much more than what we are doing. The only need is a strong
political will. So you're saying there has to be a clear direction and there has to be certainty as far as policy is concerned.
Absolutely.
On that note, it's time for us to take another break. When we return, we continue our conversation on Energizing India.
GE and CNBC TV 18 present Energizing India.
Let me start getting wrap-up comments from everybody. Vipul, you articulated very clearly what needs to be done as far as encouraging the right mix for India concerned. What, to your mind, are the biggest challenges today? And, we are going to have a new government come into place in 2014. What would you say needs to be done on a priority basis?
This is a high-tech sector, especially if you look at oil and gas and renewables and so on. These are high-tech areas. We can't approach them with the same mindset as lower technology sectors. Whether we are investing in India to develop technology, whether we are importing the technology and adapting it, you take the entire spectrum of the industry, underground coal, higher efficiency boilers, higher efficiency turbines, deep water oil and gas, EOR, some of the polymer floods, the carbonate EORs we are talking about, renewables, there is, if you again take the 15-year view, I would say that is the single biggest priority that needs to get added. The other areas like competitive access to acreage, or support on the fiscal side, or building out a national industry, I think they also need to be done. But there's already a lot of discussion on those.
It's also a mindset issue, Banmani, and that's what you were talking about. We need to stop thinking about the L1 sort of concept as far as this sector is concerned, because we are talking about large amounts of capital. We're talking about high-end specialized technology. And so it is, the need of the hour is also a mindset and an attitudinal change.
Absolutely. So we spoke about pricing, and I think everyone agrees that needs to get straight. Regarding technology, I think clearly we can use technology. Dr. Parekh spoke about mining. Now, we can use better technology to mine far more productively and effectively if we do things on scale. If acreage is a challenge and environment, forest clearances, etc. are a challenge, we can go underground. There's technology available. We should be doing all those things. Today, we are not looking at all those things. So clearly, I think we need to leverage technology. And I think in order to be able to leverage technology, we need scale. You can't possibly have high-end technology with small-size mining operations or very small-size offshore drilling operations, etc. So we need to combine pricing, of course, along with scale, which I think will bring in technology by itself.
Mr. Parekh, we certainly don't need another report.
I mean, many of the things in R&D we have said in the integrated energy policy. But let me reiterate what I think are the most important areas in which we need to produce. And one can even envisage with the kind of possible research that we can do, that we can have energy independence. For example, cellulosic ethanol, which is the second generation ethanol that you produce from the agricultural waste, can give you a couple of 100 million tons of oil without really competing with food production. So that's number one. Coal India is now allowed to mine methane.
That's right.
That's one step forward. Underground coal gasification is another area which we need to follow, and this has not been followed in the past because it was not clear whether it falls under Coal India's domain or under ONGC's domain. 20 years we have wasted in this. So this is one thing which we need to clear it up. The third important research would be, I think, as this is energy storage, but I would suggest that, bringing down the cost of renewables, solar, increasing the photovoltaic efficiency of a solar plant from 25% to 50% could have a dramatic impact on India's energy future and so on.
Mr. Sharma, the final word to you. We need to get ministries to sort of stop fighting with each other over turf issues. We also perhaps need Navratnas to stop fighting with each other over turf issues.
Precisely, when I say that, that all that positivities need to come into the system, which unfortunately are not all that pervasive right now. Just, Dr. Parekh talked about the underground coal gasification. ONGC did start in a big way involving a Russian company, and in Vastan field we drilled 18 wells, and when the situation came for actually, going on the commercial, precisely the same thing came. The coal ministry said, well, ONGC can't do it. It is under our
Coal
domain.
India, yeah.
Technology, you see the whole of this current energy crisis issue can be solved, just increase 10% efficiency in India's coal production.
Yeah.
You will not have all the power plants idling, the kind of thing. So technology in all fields has to be there in a big way. All efforts have to be combined together, and where you started demand side management.
Yeah.
The consumption discipline, unless the consumer feels the pinch, that discipline will not
You're absolutely
come.
right.
Consumers do react to price, consumers do react to information, and I think demand side management cannot proceed without an absolutely right kind of a pricing policy.
Absolutely. So the right pricing policy, discipline as far as consumers are concerned, pricing discipline, political will, regulatory certainty, those are some of the issues that we need to grapple with in order to keep this sector in India up and running and to be able to get to the objectives that the government has articulated for itself for 2025. My many thanks to our panelists for joining us here on this special discussion, Energizing India, brought to you in association with GE. On that note, it is time for us to wrap up. We'll join you again with more conversation. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.